Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is a companion video, also known as a walk and talk, as I try to kill two birds with one stone, doing the companion videos and getting in my 5 miles a day. So let's call it a walk and talk. So what is a companion video? See, every day on the John Campea Show, we take live questions, but we don't always have time to get around to all the live questions that get sent in. But I want to make sure those questions get answered properly in a video, so I gather up those questions and we address them here on companion videos. Now, we're a little bit backlogged because this past Thursday, we only had about 10 minutes worth of leftover questions, so I thought I'd save that to Friday. But then Friday came, and we had more questions, but The Boys dropped on Amazon, and I ended up binge-watching the entire first season in one day, and I finished at 2 a.m. So here we are now, getting caught up on Thursday, Fridays, and today's leftover questions that you guys sent in via Super Chat. So let's not waste any time, and let's jump right into it. All right, the first one we're going to start getting caught up on comes into us from Frankie Gouge, who writes, guilty please, probably meant guilty pleasure. Rutger Hauer's Split Second. You know, it's funny because I've been hearing from a couple of people. Of course, Rutger Hauer passed away last week, tragically at the age of 75, far too young. And a lot of people have been sending in. Now, I know a lot of people, I've said this before, think about Blade Runner when they think about Rutger Hauer. Personally, I think of Lady Hawk, but Split Second's another good one to have. All right, Grand Master writes, Lion King opened 192 million. Seldom the projected numbers, 185, are that far off. This makes it the 8th biggest opening weekend of all time. Wow, and that's true. So why did that happen? Why did the box office report, when it came out on Sunday, say 185, but then when the report got updated on Monday, it was 192? Here's what happens. On Sunday, they put out a box office report that includes Friday numbers, Saturday numbers, and what they extrapolate from the Friday and Saturday numbers, they give an estimate of what it's going to make on Sunday and give a preliminary box office report. All right? And normally that's within 99.9% accuracy. Then what happens is Monday, they update that report with what we call the actuals report, with the actual final numbers. Now, like I said, the numbers that get reported on Saturday or on Sunday are generally speaking pretty bang on the money, very, very close. But this was $7 million off, about 3.5% off, about 3.5%. But this is one of the biggest gaps we've ever seen. Normally it's 1 million off, usually it's not off at all. But then sometimes it'll be like 1 million off, 2 million off. Very rarely will you see it 7 million off. But then again, like I said, keep in mind, that only represents about 3.5%. So it's still pretty damn close. But you're right, it was one of the bigger ones we've ever seen. And yes, 8th biggest opening of all time, the biggest animated opening of all time, and the 2nd biggest opening of all time for any movie that wasn't a comic book movie or a Star Wars movie. That's pretty impressive. Still not as high as it could have been, in my opinion, but still pretty impressive. All right, David Linian writes, Zombieland 2 trailer just dropped. Yeah, I saw the Zombieland 2 trailer. I don't like the first Zombieland all that much, but I gotta say, the trailer for the second one does look pretty damn good. Yuri Manian writes, Rutger Hauer movie Split Second is my favorite. See? I told you, you're not alone. There are a bunch of people that really, really like that Rutger Hauer movie Split Second. A+ Opinions writes, with Taika Waititi adapting the Mighty Thor story, over under 20%, we are introduced to Jane, who now has cancer since it's been years since we've last seen her. Should help us invest more in her story. As we know, with most comic book movies, even MCU movies, almost you can make an argument, more so MCU movies than any others, they'll often have their movie based on a comic story, but it'll stick very loosely to it. Like Civil War in the movies is very different from Civil War in the comic books, right? So, or X-Men, right? X-Men Days of Future Past was hardly anything like the comic story of X-Men Days of Future Past. So how many elements will they borrow from there? I could see them bringing in the cancer element. I can see them doing that. Because you're right. It gets something that gets you invested in her story. It makes it very personal. A lot of people, almost everybody's been touched by the disease at one point or another. So it could be a good mechanism to connect the audience with it. So I'm not saying it's likely. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's likely. But if you're going to set the number at 20%, I'll take the over on 20%. All right, Hardy Buck 04 writes, wow, So the poor Game of Thrones cast had to comment on the backlash at their panel while Benioff and Weiss ducked out last minute. What a bunch of cowards. Well, look, here's the thing. They're not cowards. All right? They clearly really did have to back out the last second for scheduling conflict because it makes no logical sense. If they didn't want to go to that panel because they were afraid of backlash, and let's be honest, there's never any backlash at these things. These things are always big love fests, all the time. Just go to a Star Wars convention. When they bring out people from the most hated of Star Wars movies, it's a love fest. It totally would have been. But even if, I've been saying this all the time, it's the only logical thing. If you don't want to accept logic and you just want to go with a twisted thing, sure. But logically speaking, if you were invited to be at something and you thought you were going to catch a lot of heat being at it, and you didn't want to go, you just wouldn't have accepted it in the first place. That's what you would have done. That's what I would have done. That's what they would have done. Or, if you had accepted it and then had a change of heart, you would have canceled weeks before it happened. You wouldn't put it off to the last minute when it's going to get the most attention, right? Because that's why everybody got the most attention, because it was the last minute. That's not what you would have done if you really wanted to duck it for those reasons. It just doesn't make any sense. But when people are all riled up, they really don't care about logic. But no, logically speaking, that's not why they weren't there. It makes no common sense. It's not what you would have done. It's not what I would have done. It's not what anybody would have done. So I don't buy it. I don't buy it. All right. Geeky Galore writes, Zombieland 2 trailers came out. Oh, no, sorry. Geeky Galore just sends in flowers. Thank you, Geeky Galore. Colby Harris writes, the Zombieland 2 trailer just came out. Again, this was the other day. Not a fan of the first one, I got to say. I didn't hate it, but I didn't particularly love it. But I do really like this trailer, so let's see where this is going to go. Coolsome XD writes, not a movie, but I love Rutger Hauer in Kingdom Hearts 3 as Master Xenonhort. You know what? I am not familiar with Kingdom Hearts 3, so I can't say anything about it. But I didn't even know he did voices for things like that. That's pretty cool. Sea Spice writes, the Goldblum tweet is fake, not the real guy. Yeah, we talked about that on the show the other day, too. Again, all the headlines ran with it. It seemed like that was from the real Jeff Goldblum. Turned out it was. I mean, it was not much ado about nothing, but whatever. In case Kaba... I don't know. Inca Scub History writes, greetings, Giovanni. You are an extraordinary individual with great knowledge and you exemplify professionalism in punditry. I absolutely love the show. Spider-Man Far From Home now crossed $1 billion. Yep, and we talked about that on the show the other week about how Spider-Man Far From Home was already the #1 Spider-Man movie in history at the box office, which is something when you consider all the Spider-Man movies there have been. And considering none of the Spider-Man movies have ever made less than $700 million. Think about that. With all the Spider-Man movies, and none of them have made under $700 million, none of them have ever made $1 billion. So they've all been in this very specific window of box office between $700 million and $1 billion. And so, well, really between $700 million and $900 million. Think about that. And now this one, not only is the biggest one of all time, it is now the first one to join the $1 billion club. All right, Gaetan Fowl writes, The Lion King, 8th best opening, 191.7, not 9th. Yeah, we were talking about that just a little bit ago. Good observation, Gaetan. Fanjexture writes, who's one of the sponsors of our program, by the way. Fanjexture writes, I have a feeling that WandaVision will be Wanda projecting a life with Vision onto herself, like how she got into people's heads in Ultron. It's not real. Well, here's what I think. And let's continue reading what Fanjector writes after that. Then Fanjector writes, while the title WandaVision is a cute play on the two characters' names, I propose it's literal a la Wanda. A la Wanda's Vision, not sure the resolution though. Here's why I don't believe that. Well, there are two things. The one thing I do believe is that the title WandaVision could be a play on words. But the notion that the whole thing takes place in her own self-induced vision, I think they're not going to do that because that would be a horrible mistake. There's nothing audiences hate more than the whole, it was all a dream. It was never real. Like, that's one of the worst things a movie or show can do to their audience, right? what was it? Which television show was it? Like either Dallas or one of these shows pulled that, where the entire season was just a dream. Audiences hate that. Hate that because it ultimately means there was no point to watching the movie or the show, as the case may be. So while I agree, to a degree, that the title WandaVision could be a play on words that has multiple meanings, I agree with that. That could be the case. I don't agree that it's going to be the whole thing will take place in her own mind, creating her own world, and she's living within her own vision. I think that would be a terrible mistake for Marvel to make, and I think they're smart enough to know that would be a mistake. So both agree and disagree on that, Fanjecture. All right, Harry Mudd writes, Rutger Hauer and Jeremy Kemp died recently, I know, very sad. Thanks for bringing that up again, Harry. Goran Stefanovski writes, do you think Jane as the new Thor would be one and done deal since they announced it so early? I personally think they should make her own hero. Elizabeth Olsen said, gosh, guys, don't, please use spacing. Use the proper spacing in your words or else I'm just not going to read them, okay? Elizabeth Olsen said, we would see why she's Scarlet Witch. Do you think she'll be closer to the comics now? Maybe Nightmare, rumored villain in Doctor Strange, manipulates Wanda and somehow she goes mad. And Doctor Strange has to bring her back with Klee. Well, here's the thing. They clearly make Wanda's different than her comic book iteration, right? Like, for instance, in the comic, there's like reality manipulating. There's things she can't do in the movies that they've never made a part of her character in the movies that they do in the comic books. And I don't think they're about to start crossing those boundaries too much here. I really don't. I don't think they're going to be crossing those, and I don't think they're going to make her closer to the comic book character. I think they love the character they've made her. I think the audience has really begun to really attach themselves to the character that she is. But no, what I think is they'll go deeper and give us more of an exploration, I should say, of the character she is in the movies, rather than moving her closer to this other iteration in a different medium in the comic books. What a lot of comic book movie fans continue to forget, and I'm guilty of this too sometimes, is we forget that the comic book movies are not the comic books. They're based on them, but they're still two very different things. So personally, I don't think they're going to start making her closer to the comic book thing. I think they're just going to really go more and explore the character she is in the movie universe. I think, at any rate. We'll have to wait and see if I'm right or wrong about that. Okay, where are we at here? Gaytown Fowl writes, Aladdin, 1 billion official. And it's true. Aladdin has officially crossed the $1 billion mark, which is nuts. We talked about it a little bit on the show earlier. I mean, I think when they first announced Aladdin, we all thought, hey, it's possible and Aladdin could make $1 billion. But once they started announcing like Mina Masood, who played Aladdin that nobody had ever heard of, and they announced that Will Smith was playing the genie, which I thought was a good casting, but most people didn't. And then the first trailer came out. I mean, I think everybody's expectations came down a lot, including me. I didn't think it was going to make $1 billion. But then I saw the movie, I'm like, this movie's delightful. This movie's really fun. And it just hung in there, and people kept going to see it and giving it a chance, and it has joined the $1 billion club, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Harry Mudd writes, fun trivia. The 60s Batmobile was bought for $1. Do you mean at the time, or it was bought after the fact for, like, I got the hiccups, symbolically for $1, something like that? Either way, Harry, that is an interesting bit of trivia. Goran Stefanovski writes, do you think Marvel would do a Nova movie? I think eventually they'll make a movie about all of their even remotely recognizable characters. Do I think we're going to get a Nova movie in the next 3 to 4 years? No. But do I think we could eventually? 7 years from now? 10 years from now? Yeah. I mean, at some point, they're going to keep wanting to make movies about new characters. And at some point, they could come around to Nova. So yeah, it's definitely possible. Ladislav Misanik writes, I want Cavill to be Superman again, only to see the party in your studio. So what he means by that is that I said on my show the other day that I don't believe Henry Cavill's coming back as Superman. I don't think that's happening. I think that ship has sailed. However, this is one of those situations where, oh my God, I would love to be wrong. Because Henry Cavill is my all-time favorite Superman. I love him as Superman. I think he's amazing. I've had a chance to meet him on a couple of occasions. He's great. I would love, and I said if the day they announce that he is coming back to play Superman, I'm going to have balloons, I'm going to pop bottles, I'm going to have confetti falling from the ceiling. I'm having a party on my show, celebrating Henry Cavill returning as Superman, where he should be. But I just don't think it's going to happen. But I hope we get to throw that party, Ladislav. All right, Santez Henderson writes, where do we go? There we are. I love Superman Returns. I get it. No action. However, what makes it special is exploring Soup's view of the world after he went absent, and I liked how Lois had to make a choice with moving on in life. Here's what I've always said, Santez, honestly. I've always liked Superman Returns. I've always liked it. And I think Brandon Routh was a great Superman. The way I've always described it myself is this. I thought Superman Returns was a really good movie, but a really bad comic book movie. Let me say that again. I've always felt that Superman Returns was a really good movie, but a really bad comic book movie. Like, you can't do a comic book movie with the granddaddy of all superheroes, Superman, and not have him in one legitimate fight. It's a comic book movie. It's Superman. I mean, a friend of mine used to joke around and say you could have called the movie Superman Delivery Boy, because all he did in this movie was carry stuff around. He lifted up a plane, he lifted up a mountain, he just lifted crap. Superman lifts crap. I mean, that could have been the name of the movie, right? He has no fights, and you can't do a comic book movie and attract the comic book movie fans in the hopes of seeing a comic book movie and not implement that sort of element into it. Now, that said, just as a character study movie, I thought it was quite interesting and quite good. And I agree with what you're saying, like looking at it from his point of view and how he would see the world. How does he, as a God man, live amongst people and fit in? What's his place in the world? The stuff with Lois, even though they miscast her. All those questions. I thought there were some really good building blocks there for a really good movie. Again, just a kind of a poor comic book movie, and I think I have to acknowledge that, even as a fan. Koka Kumaku writes, "Hey John, just sent you a free super chat." So apparently when you're, like a premium member of YouTube, you get like a free super chat to send, and a lot of you guys have been sending them into the show. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate that, man. All right, Corey Harper writes, "Love you and the crew. Keep staying positive." Oh, thank you so much, Corey. I appreciate that. And I do have a great crew that does the shows with me, from behind the scenes with Ray and fact checker Jonathan, Chris Carr, Aaron Cummings, Robert Meyer Burnett. It's just a great team of people that does the different programs with me, both in front of the camera and behind the camera. So thank you for that, Corey. I appreciate that. Otto000 writes, "No out of the theater review for Once Upon a Time." No. Honestly, because what I did for like Crawl and for Stuber is I did a quick review, like a quick 1-minute review on my cell phone of just out of the theater. And I'll be honest with you, after sitting in that theater for 3 hours, I was just looking forward to getting out, and I totally forgot to record an out of theater review. So I'll remember for next time. I will remember for next time. Okay, Darth Sidious writes, "Hi John," where are we at here? Oh yeah. "Which piece of Star Wars music from the prequels is your favorite?" Well, that's easy. I'm just Duel of the Fates. That's the name of it, right? Duel of the Fates. I believe that's the name of it. That, clearly and obviously, that's the best thing ever. That's like one of the greatest things ever to come out of the prequels. All right, Chris Feldman writes, "An Endgame deleted scene was posted this morning showing Gamora alive following Tony's snap. So, if it's a deleted scene, does that mean it's canon?" Well, I mean, this came up on the show the other day as well. Of course it's canon. Here's the thing. Why did anybody ever think Gamora wasn't alive still? Seriously, I have no idea why anybody for 1 minute would have thought Gamora was dead. They practically told you in the movie she's still alive because that's what Star-Lord's doing. He's searching for Gamora, right? So they pretty much tell you she's alive. There was nothing in the movie suggesting she would be dead. So I'll be honest with you. I'm kind of surprised, as many people are thought that this was a possibility that Gamora was dead at the end of that battle. I have never understood why anybody thought that. Makes no sense to me whatsoever. So the movie, even without the deleted scene, the movie makes it pretty damn clear she's alive, in my opinion. I mean, that's how I walked out of the theater thinking, well, Gamora's clearly alive, and part of the Guardians moving forward is going to be because, he's looking at the picture of her, she's trying to figure out where she might have gone. He's going to go searching for her. I thought, the only thing to me that Endgame didn't do was flash in neon lights. Gamora returns to Guardians of the Galaxy in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. That's the only thing they could have done to make it more obvious. At least to me, I was shocked. Shocked to find out so many people actually thought she was dead. I wouldn't have thought anybody would have thought that. But anyway, even without the scene, I think they made it clear that it's canon that she's alive. Anyway, Valhalla Erickson writes, in the minority, but I don't want Tarantino to do a Star Trek film. I like that he's among the few directors that isn't adapting stuff. Well, yeah, but what's wrong with adapting stuff? Don't get me, I love his original stuff, but a lot of the greatest films of all time are adapted material. Most of the greatest films of all time are adapted material. So it's not like he's never done adapted. It's like, come on, Tarantino, do an original for once before you retire. Why not let him do an adaptation? Now, I know a lot of people who don't want Tarantino doing a Star Trek film. It has nothing to do with whether it's an adaptation or not. They just don't think he's a good fit for Star Trek. I, for one, would be pretty fascinated. And it'd be nice to see Tarantino getting out of his very defined little sandbox that all of his movies seem to be in. It would be nice to see him expand himself a little bit before he supposedly retires, which I doubt he's going to do, but that's just me. All right, Fernando Aguilera writes, after her successful portrayal of X-23 in Logan, do you think we'll ever get an X-23 movie with Daphne Keane or another actress under the Fox banner? Did Fox even consider making an X-23 after fans' positive reaction to Daphne Keene's portrayal? Well, will we ever see one moving forward? No. They're rebooting the X-Men, so that's gone. So we're not going to see Daphne Keene as X-23. There is a report that said some of the writers over at Fox wanted to take a crack at doing an X-23 movie, but that never actually went anywhere. It didn't actually get any traction. And we're going to see here pretty soon because she's got that new show coming out on HBO. But I always felt at the time that while she was great silent, she was magnificent silent, and really cool when she was yelling at him in Spanish. I didn't know that she could actually carry a movie, that it required dialogue. I just didn't know that she could actually do it. And would you want to put the weight of a movie on the shoulders of a child actor? And I'm not so sure about that. Again, not saying definitely against it, I'm just saying not sure about it. But no, it never got to any serious point where they were seriously considering doing X-23. There were some initial talks, some people had some ideas, but it never went there. But no, you're never going to see that because that character doesn't exist anymore. That entire Fox X-Men universe is gone. That includes Logan and they're all gone. And so when they do bring it back, it'll be completely rebooted, and I don't think you're going to get X-23 for a while. And when they do get in X-23, because they got a lot of establishment they got to do first before they ever get around to X-23, if they ever do it. But when they do, it definitely won't be Daphne Keane. It's a new universe, they'll recast it. So anyway, there's that. Ryan Hewitt writes, I could be wrong, but in Endgame, was that Star-Lord's first time returning to Earth since he was a kid? As far as I know, let's put it this way. It was at least the first time he returned to Earth that we know of. He never returned to Earth in any of the other movies, and he never referred going back to Earth. Now, they could say later on that, hey, there was one time when he was 18 that he did stop off down on Earth for a minute. So for all we know, we might do that. But as far as I know right now, Ryan, there's been no mention of him going back to Earth prior to Endgame, so it very well could be. All right, Coolsome XD writes, John, I was saying if Sly has a Rocky story and a studio wants it, he should tell it, not hold on to it, then going and never being able to tell it. Well, I remember the topic, Coolsome. I think a lot of people just don't see. Look, Sylvester Stallone, while he's clearly still going at 100 miles per hour, as far as how much longer he can make movies, his time is limited. And there are people wondering now, hey, look, you've probably only got so many more movies you can make before you're going to retire. Why make another Rocky movie? You've made almost a dozen of them, it feels like. Why make another one of those? Why not do something else? But hey, if he's passionate and wants to do it, go for it. But I just think when you hear some people questioning it, it's because, like, why do another Rocky? And I think that's what probably people are thinking right now, the ones who are kind of against it. But hey, you know what? He's Sylvester Stallone. If he's totally passionate about making another Rocky movie, then who's going to say no? Go ahead and do it. Probably make it for really cheap, probably make a bit of profit, so why not if he wants to do it? All right, let's see here. Manic Bisht writes, should Marvel renew Spidey? They get no money from his solo films, but they make a lot of money as the production company. They get paid by Sony a big production fee to make that movie. Plus, then they can use him in their other MCU films. So it's a win-win for Marvel. Anyway, they get no money from his solo films. They have all Fox characters now. Got too many projects. Black Panther, Captain Marvel. I don't know what DS is off the top of my head. X-Men, Fantastic Four for team-ups. Yeah, but Spider-Man is Spider-Man. And look, it's important to note here, the real decision will be made by Sony. It's really up to Sony if they want to re-up it. And then it's just up to Marvel about whether they want to accept it or not. But yeah, if you're Marvel, why wouldn't you want Spider-Man? Other than maybe Superman or Batman, I mean, he's probably the most recognizable superhero in the world, is Spider-Man. Probably amongst the most popular superheroes in the world. Why wouldn't you want Spider-Man? Why wouldn't you want Spider-Man in your universe? The fans love Spider-Man. Now, you want to make sure you don't give away the kitchen sink, to get the rights to do Spider-Man, but the Sony deal is a good deal for them. Yeah, they don't get the box office, and yes, Sony has to approve everything, but you get paid big production money, it's a feather in your cap, and you get to use the character in your team-up movies. It's a win. So, I can't see, unless Sony started making some ridiculous demands, which why would they? Because Sony's getting everything that they want out of this too. So it's a win for Sony. It's a win for Marvel. I don't see why they'd want out of it. Yeah, they have all these other characters, but it's like saying to DC, you know what? Let Batman go. You've got all these other characters. Don't need Batman, but he's the most popular character you have. So I would say, yeah, Marvel is highly incentivized to keep Spider-Man there if they can. They have big incentive to do that. Okay, Krieger119 writes, does Quentin Tarantino need Star Trek brand for a Pulp Fiction in space? Well, if anybody's going to go see it, yes. I mean, look, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood just opened, right? And it's the biggest opening in Quentin Tarantino's career, $40 million opening weekend. And that's the biggest of his career. You do a Quentin Tarantino Pulp Fiction in space, no one's going to go see that. At least nobody who's not already a hardcore Quentin Tarantino fan, right? And that's going to cost a lot more to make. Now you make it a Star Trek movie, well now you got much broader appeal. And you can make back that money you would spend on having it in space. But no, I don't think any studio is going to greenlight a Pulp Fiction in space. Because you're not going to make your money back. Just that. You attach the Star Trek brand to it. Now it's got much broader appeal, and you can go with it. So, hey, does Quentin Tarantino need to make a Star Trek movie? No. But if he wants to do Pulp Fiction in space, it would probably be pretty smart to attach that to the Star Trek brand. So that's just my thoughts on that right now. Goran Stefanovsky writes, Korg mentioned vampires in Thor 3, so they're in the MCU. No, that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything. Lots of TV shows and movies mention vampires, but that doesn't mean vampires are actually in that world, right? I mean, vampires are mentioned in West Wing, but vampires weren't really around in the world of West Wing. You know, they were fictitious characters. So just because Korg says vampires, that doesn't necessarily mean that meant there were vampires. Korg was probably just referring to the mythology of vampires, just like everybody else does. So no. Obviously we're going to get vampires in the MCU. Obviously we're going to get vampires in the MCU, but that doesn't mean that Korg making a joke and using a vampire reference, that was not in and of itself confirmation that vampires are in the MCU. Any more than when they mentioned vampires on West Wing, was that a confirmation that vampires exist in the world of West Wing? No, it didn't. The Nerdy Hatter writes, the CGI for cats is actually perfect for Cheetah. Well, I mean, it's just, the CGI that they use in the Cats trailer, and obviously the Cats movie, is groundbreaking. I'm hearing some people complain about the visual effects in the trailer. First of all, I don't like the trailer. I don't think the trailer's any good. But the visual effects in it are amazing. Like, I watched the visual effects, and this is coming from somebody who used to work in the visual effects industry, and I was floored by what they did. I was like, whoo! Well, I was like, woo! Like when I saw the visual effects, I was just blown away by it. Blown away by it. I thought the visual effects were incredible. So I think there's a lot of applications for that style of effect. And yeah, for a cheetah character and a Wonder Woman, it definitely would be one of them for sure. Doesn't mean you have to use that one, but that would be a good one. All right, NPE93 writes, Once Upon a Time was so refreshingly character-driven and reliant on atmosphere. It was nearly as good as Jackie Brown. But I respect your view and the fact that you didn't just give it raves to appease people. Yeah, look, I liked Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I just did my, I did my review last week, and I did a spoiler discussion on Sunday. And, I go into detail about, it's a collection of scenes. A lot of those scenes are fabulous. I like the main characters, terrific performances, and an outstanding ending. So I walked out of the theater having enjoyed myself. That said, I do think there are problems with the film. Lack of a plot, 45 minutes longer than it needed to be, characters that didn't even need to be in the film, a lot of wasted time and very bad pacing. Now, I think the positive outweighed the negative by quite a bit, so I still quite enjoyed the film, but yeah, I thought it had problems. But hey, man, I'm glad you enjoyed it the amount you did, NPE. All right. Goran Stefanowski writes, Hope they don't replace Thor and sideline him in his own movie. Chris is such a great actor and the perfect Thor. Rumor is he signed on for 5 MCU movies. Yeah, ignore the rumor. It could be 5, it could be 7, it could be 12, it could be 3, who knows? Nobody really knows at this point. 5 is a good standard number, so who knows? But remember, it doesn't matter that it's Chris Hemsworth. You don't owe Chris Hemsworth anything but a paycheck. The movie is not there to serve the character. The character's there to serve the movie, even in a movie called Thor. Now look, I don't like the sounds of this new Thor. I don't like the fact that they're going to make Jane the new Thor. I don't like any of that stuff. I think that sounds pretty bad. But I'll give the movie a shot when it comes out, because I trust Taika Waititi, I trust Kevin Feige. Maybe I'll leave my expectations at the door, maybe I'll love it. Yay! Maybe they'll find a good way to make it all work. So I'm not excited about it, but I don't think that you just keep it Chris Hemsworth-centric because, I don't know. Again, the movie is not there to serve the character. The character is there to serve the movie. And if they've got a certain story of a movie they want to tell, then you use the characters in whatever way that best serves that story, not the other way around. So we'll see, though. I got to admit, man, I'm pretty nervous about it. All right. Coolsome XD writes, A Dog's Way Home was spoiled in the trailer because the audience who goes to see dog movies will not see it if they don't know the dog is safe at the end. Not true. Not true. There are a number of dog movies, based on books where everybody knows it's a tragic ending or a sad ending. And dog lovers love those movies. As a matter of fact, we've got this new one called, the one with Milo Ventimiglia in it, like racing, anyway, with the dog and Milo Ventimiglia. Kevin Costner is doing the voice of the dog. Apparently that's got a pretty sad ending. Because everybody I'm talking to who has read the book, including Chris Carr and my wife Ann, who have read the book are like saying, we bawled our eyes out at the end. Okay, so, all right. But they're super excited about this movie. And they seem to know, I've not read the book, so I don't know. But they seem to know that the dog does not make it out safe at the end, and yet they're still excited to see it. So, yeah, I don't know if I agree with you on that one, Coulson. I don't know if I agree. All right, Hanging with Mr. Harris writes, hello, John. Hello, Hanging with Mr. Harris. First super chat. Well, thank you so much for sending that in. I love the show. I saw Alien for the first time the other night, really. It was a great film, masterclass in filmmaking for sure. You know what, seriously, now, if you've only seen Alien now for the first time, I'm going to maybe assume that you haven't seen the second one, Aliens. Great movies to get caught up on. And one of the coolest things about it, as the first two movies in that franchise, some people consider it the only two movies in the franchise. Anyway, is that the two movies are so different. One is eerie and atmosphere and horror. Second one is one of the greatest action films ever made. My second favorite action film of all time. Second only to True Lies. True Lies with Arnold is my all-time favorite action film. Aliens is my second all-time favorite action film. So go and watch that one next. And it's going to be both jarring to see what a different kind of a movie it is from the first one, but they're both remarkable in their own way. And I'm glad you got caught up with that, Hanging with Mr. Harris. Jack Zen writes, Brandon Routh back as Superman in CW. Thoughts? Well, I've talked about this many times. I'm not going to get terribly excited about it because I don't know if it's going to be a small thing he's doing. I don't know if it's going to be a season-altering thing he's doing. So until I get a little bit more information, I'm not going to get terribly excited. But I love Brandon Routh. I really liked him as Superman. So I think it's kind of fun in a novelty kind of way that he's going to be back as at least for a small amount of time, he's going to be back as Superman. That's going to be kind of cool to see. All right. Jose Juan Aguilar writes, Yo, John, NFL season is sneaking up on us quick. It is. Our boy Brady is in a division with only second-year quarterbacks. How early are they going to lock up the division? I'll tell you what. I'm pretty nervous about this year for the Pats. I think this is the first year that the dynasty is over. Look, Tom is still one of the best in the world, but, he's in his 40s. Gronk is gone now. Edelman is going to be, I think, one step slower. I haven't really seen them fill the holes too much this offseason. They're still without a true deep threat offensively. Their defense has been shored up nicely, so, man, I don't know. I don't even know that they win the division this year. I think they'll have a good year by normal football team standards, but I think the dynasty is over. I'll be watching every game and I'll cheer on every game, but I think the dynasty is over. We'll find out soon enough. All right. Nat Zegri writes, any movie character impressions you like to do? For any of you who've watched my show for any period of time, and every once in a while I'll bust out an impression, and I am always bad. My impressions are terrible. I have absolutely brutally bad impressions, so no character impressions I like to do. Kaylee Young writes, Aloha, John. Absolutely love the show. Awesome energy. Oh, thank you so much, Kaylee. I appreciate that. The energy that people like Chris and Aaron and Rob bring is great, and I love doing the show with them. So thank you so much for saying that. I appreciate that. Nightwolf18 writes, first time writing, in love with the show, never miss it. With the end of Far From Home, I have a theory that the next movie can have Kraven the Hunter, it won't, on a manhunt for Spider-Man as he is on the run. The problem with that, Nightwolf, is that it looks pretty clear that Sony is going to use Kraven. Sony is going to have Kraven in their Sonyverse. So they're not going to let Marvel have Kraven in the MCU. So, I mean, look, a Kraven hunting, like Last Hunt and all that kind of stuff, having Kraven the Hunter hunting down Spider-Man is a great thing for a movie. But Sony's got their own plans, apparently, for Kraven, and they're not going to let him be in the MCU. They're going to use him in the Venomverse, probably. That's probably the next movie to come after Venom 2. So we got Morbius shooting. They're going to be shooting then Venom 2 after that, and then I believe the next one after that is going to be Kraven, so you're not going to see him in the MCU, unfortunately. Let's see. Hunter Killian writes, where are we at? There we are. John, thoughts on Dark, the Netflix original sci-fi show. I just binge-watched the first 2 seasons the past 2 days. I thought it was amazing. I've never heard of it. So, well, I mean, there's a couple things you got to keep in mind here, Hunter. Number one, I don't watch a ton of television. I don't have time for a whole ton of television. But that aside, Netflix is the worst at marketing their own shows that are on their own original series. They're terrible. They're terrible at marketing their own original movies. They're terrible at marketing their own original shows. So I've never even heard of it, to be honest with you. And it sounds like you like it, so why not market it more? But anyway, yeah, man, I gotta be honest, I've never even heard of it. Main man Cam7 writes, my wife, who hates comic book movies, wants to watch Endgame for me and asked which movies we have to watch to get the full effect. I sadly said all but Hulk and Guardians 2, possibly Captain Marvel. Thoughts? I disagree. I really think, one of my friends was in the same boat, had only seen 1 or 2 Marvel movies a long time ago, and wanted to see Endgame to get all the hype. And they asked, which films do you have to see? And I would argue there's only one movie you have to see in order to watch Endgame, and that's Infinity War. But to get a good picture, there's about 5. You got to watch the original Guardians of the Galaxy. I think you got to watch Avengers and Age of Ultron, Black Panther, and Doctor Strange. I think if you watch those, you'll have a very, very good foundation for what you're getting into when you get into Infinity War and Endgame. I think if you just saw those movies, I think you have all the fundamental pieces you need. And everything else from the other movies, you'll just pick up on as you go. Like, notice I didn't throw an Ant-Man in there. I think you're okay without Ant-Man. I think you're okay without Iron Man 2 or 3. I think you're okay without Guardians 2. I think you're okay even... Oh my God, I got to put... Civil War has to be one of those 2. Sorry about that. Civil War has got to be one of them as well. But I think there's a lot of them, more than half the films you don't need. Now, every film carries along with it one little piece of the puzzle, sure, but as far as need, 5 or 6. 5 or 6 at most, and I think your wife will be good. All right. Derek Large writes, have you seen About Time, a great romantic comedy, father and son? Yes, that's the one with Donald Gleason and good Canadian girl Rachel McAdams. It is a nice little movie, actually, and I actually had a chance to talk to Donald Gleason about it once, and it's a nice little film. I thought the performances were great. It's a nice little movie. Chris Warden writes, saw A Time in Hollywood last night. Not Quentin's best, but let's be honest, his bar is set pretty high, so I definitely recommend seeing it. I agree. Not his best. I wouldn't even put, honestly, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in Quentin Tarantino's top 5. I wouldn't even put it personally in his top 5. But, like you said, Chris, his top 5 is a pretty high bar. So not being in the top 5 is by no means any kind of condemnation on the film, because that is a really high bar. But yeah, not one of the best Tarantino movies, but I still thought enjoyable, even though I had some issues with it. All right, Jay-Z writes, 10 years ago, the top 5 highest grossing movies were Titanic, Return of the King, Pirates of the Caribbean 2, The Dark Knight, and Harry Potter 1. Taking us back, Jay-Z, into the time machine. That's kind of cool. You know what? That gives me an idea. I should make that a weekly segment on my show. Just say, and 10 years ago, the top 10 at the box office was... I should start doing that on my show, because that's a pretty cool idea. I like what you did there. I think I just might do that. You just gave me a great idea. I just might do that, Jay-Z. Thanks for sending that in. All right. Brian Esparza writes, top films this year, Last Black Man in San Francisco, which I still haven't seen, Endgame, and The Art of Self-Defense. I highly recommend these films if you haven't seen them. I'm hearing nothing but good things about The Art of Self-Defense. I was even planning, finally, to going to see it tomorrow night. But then I forgot. I don't go to many press screenings anymore because I don't have time, but you guys know I'm dying to see Hobbs and Shaw. And so there's a press screening for that tomorrow night, Tuesday night, so I made the decision I'm going to go see that. So maybe I'll regret it, I don't know, but everybody, Brian, is talking huge things about this Art of Art of Self-Defense, so I got to check this out. At some point, I got to get around to checking this out. All right. S. Beam writes, check out premise and cast for Free Guy. Thoughts? I've never heard of it. I have no idea what Free Guy is. I don't know if that's a movie or a TV show or what. So sorry, S-Beam, no idea what that is. Darth Sidious writes, hey, John, have you ever heard of the Netflix original animated series called Stretch Armstrong and the Flex Fighters? No. I remember years ago, who was the kid who played the Wolf Boy in the Twilight movies? The good-looking wolf, the kid who turned into the wolf. Anyway, I remember they announced that the studios announced they were doing a Stretch Armstrong movie with that kid as Stretch Armstrong. But it never came about. But no, Darth, I've never heard of the Netflix original animated series Stretch Armstrong, which once again proves the point that Netflix sucks at promoting their own live shows or promoting their own original shows. They're terrible, man. All right. Mr. Hero writes, check out Amazon Prime's The Boys, epic 10 out of 10. I don't know that I give it a 10 out of 10, but I've talked about it a bunch the last couple of days. I binged the whole thing in one day. I love it. I absolutely love it. I think it's wonderful. And the only bad thing about season 1 is that it ends, and now I got to wait probably at least a year for season 2. But I adored this show, just adored it. All right, Valhalla Erickson writes, I'd love for Tarantino's next film to be a film noir. I could see him doing an homage to the Philip Marlowe films of that era. Yeah. I mean, look, first of all, if they did do that Valhalla, I'm on board. I'm totally on board. But I gotta say, if Tarantino is really only going to do one more film, and I don't believe that, I think he believes it, but I don't think it'll stick. I think he'll do more films at some point. But let's go for the assumption for a minute that he really is just doing one more film. Do I want him doing a film noir? No, I would really love to see Tarantino do a film that isn't in his wheelhouse, that isn't in his box, that isn't in his little sandbox that he never really seems to get out of. You know, every Quentin Tarantino film feels like a Quentin Tarantino film. I would love to see him stretch a little bit. You know, and that's part of the reason why I like the idea of him doing a Star Trek, because it's unlike anything he's ever done before. And I would really love to see him really get outside of his comfort zone and do something really different, something unexpected. So that's what I'd be down for. Now, don't get me wrong. If they announced something like this, Valhalla, I'd totally be down for it. I would. But I got to admit, I think I'd rather see him do something a little bit outside of his comfort zone for his final film, if it's going to be his final film, and I don't think it really will be. All right. And we wrap up today with our final question coming to us from Don't Know What to Put. And Don't Know What to Put writes, just in Ultraviolet, done on Wednesday. Is that true? I mean, I haven't heard anything about Ultraviolet in forever, so I thought it was dead already. I'll be honest with you, I thought it died years ago. But is that service dying? I'm not surprised. I don't know anybody who uses it, so not totally surprised about that. All right, guys, that will do it for this installment of the companion videos, also known as Walk and Talk. Woo! So we got through another one, guys. Thanks for being here. Don't forget, the John Campea Show returns again on the channel tomorrow morning. We're already working on new stories for that show. Make sure you come back and join me, Aaron Cummings, and of course, the great Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. All right, guys, that'll do it for me. Time for me to end this Walk and Talk. Thanks for being here. Until next time, bye-bye.